two guest speakers today. Liam McMahon, he is the healthcare policy paralegal in the long-term care resident advocacy unit at the Center for Elder Law and Justice. He has also worked in their pool trust and guardianship unit. Liam assists older adults with long-term care facility issues, providing and explaining and drafting informational materials on resident rights. We also have Erin Riker. She's a technology-based legal services attorney at the Center for Elder Law and Justice. She manages the Senior Legal Advice Helpline, which provides brief legal services free of charge to seniors age 55 and older. She also oversees the Legal Risk Detector and the Senior Financial Safety Tool, which screen senior citizens for risk of legal and financial trouble and allow them to be referred for early intervention legal services. Erin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Christine. As we discussed today, we are going to talk to you a little bit about resident rights basics and stimulus check FAQs. I'm going to go through some basics about the Economic Impact Stimulus Payment Program, some frequently asked questions about these payments, and then some common scams and misconceptions. And then I'm going to turn it over to Liam, who is going to drill down into specifics about the EIP program for residents of adult care facilities and their advocates. So to get started, the Economic Impact Payment Program might be what you refer to as the stimulus, economic impact payments, COVID relief funds, or EIPs. For the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to be referring to them as EIPs, but you may have heard any of these other names for them. These are administered as an IRS tax credit. They do not need to be paid back on future tax returns. You may have heard things on the internet or through friends that these need to be repaid. They do not. They are credits, even though you're receiving them outside of your normal tax filing and refund schedule. The eligibility for these payment programs is determined by your tax filings in 2020 for the 2019 tax year and by your tax filings this year for the 2020 tax year. They can, however, be affected by events in tax years 2020 and 2021, such as if you added a dependent or had a significant change in income. And we'll go into that a little bit more later on in the presentation. The amounts of the payment are determined by annual income, and they vary between the payment rounds. As you know, there were 3 economic impact payment rounds. The first 2 happened in 2020, and the last happened in 2021. The first round was $1,200 per person and $500 per dependent. These dependents are aged 0 to 16. For individuals making up to $99,000 or married couples filing jointly making up to $198,000 per year. After those income limits, the payments did start to phase out, where your EIP amount would drop for every 5% of income increase up to an individual limit of $198,000 per year. The second 2020 EIP was $600 per person and $600 per dependent. Again, these were only dependents aged 0 to 16. These were for individuals making up to $75,000 per year and for married couples making up to $150,000 per year. Again, the payments would start to phase out after those income limits. The 2021 EIP, which is the most recent one, which is still being distributed by the IRS to certain individuals, was $1,400 per person, including dependents, but this one was different in that it included dependents of any age. For individuals making up to $80,000 per year or married couples filing jointly making up to $160,000 per year. All right, let's go through some frequently asked questions. First and most importantly, are nursing home residents entitled to an EIP? Yes, as long as you're otherwise eligible for a payment. Being a resident in an adult care facility, a nursing home, does not disqualify you from receiving a payment. Also, and Liam will go into this a little bit more in more detail during the program, but nursing homes cannot take the resident's EIPs, even if the resident is receiving Medicaid or SSI. The Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, which Liam will discuss in more detail, can assist the residents and their families with issues caused by nursing homes and EIPs. The second, if you have a rep payee for your government benefits, are you entitled to an EIP? The answer again is yes. Having a rep payee, whether it's a private individual or a government agency, does not disqualify you from receiving a payment. And importantly, those payments they belong to you. The EIP belongs to you, not to your rep payee. If you want your rep payee's assistance with spending this payment, then the rep payee can work with you on that. If you want the money all to yourself and you don't want the rep payee involved in spending that money, then the rep payee needs to turn the funds over to you. If your government benefits, such as Social Security, are direct deposited into an account managed by the rep payee, the EIP might go there as well, because for many people, their EIPs went into whatever account that Social Security had on file for direct deposits. But again, if you don't want your rep payee involved in how you spend that payment, then the payment should be turned over to you in a manner where you can control it directly. All right, how does EIP affect your eligibility for need-based benefits? The answer is it generally does not. An EIP is not considered income in the month that it is received for any of the programs. It is also not considered a resource for the first 12 months after it is received. So as long as you spend your EIP money within 12 months after you receive it, it should not affect your eligibility for need-based benefits, because it's not considered an income or a resource. That would kind of defeat the purpose of the EIP program, because it was aimed to get money into the hands of people who need it the most, who are then going to spend it rather than save it and stimulate the economy. And if your EIP is given to you because your income is of a certain level, but then it also cuts off your need-based benefits, that's kind of counterproductive. So they did not want those EIPs to affect eligibility for Medicaid, SSI, or any other need-based benefits. All right, if you don't file taxes, how can you get your payment? There are a couple different ways that you can do this. If you receive benefits from Social Security, from the RRB, or from the VA, then information from those programs that is used to direct deposit your benefits is used to determine your eligibility for the EIPs, even if you do not file taxes. The IRS gets the information from Social Security, from the RRB, and from the VA, uses it to determine eligibility, and then sends those EIP payments via direct deposit, or in some cases via a prepaid debit card issued by KeyBank to individuals who are eligible for the EIPs. So if you don't file taxes, but you do get benefits from one of these administrations, then you should have gotten your EIP automatically, as long as you're eligible for one. If you didn't receive the first or second EIP, but you were eligible, you would need to file a 2020 tax return and claim the 2020 recovery rebate credit. If you don't normally file taxes, or if you're watching this for someone who doesn't normally file taxes, this might sound a little bit confusing. There are low-income taxpayer clinics, though, that can help you. They are available to assist filers, and you can visit the following website, taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov, for more information. You can use that website to find a low-income tax clinic in your area, or providers of services to people of limited means who don't normally file taxes, and they should be able to assist you with filing taxes and getting that recovery rebate credit. Now, if you didn't receive the third EIP, the one that was issued in 2021, you can use the IRS's Get My Payment feature on their website to track your payment status and request a missing payment. The Get My Payment feature is no longer available for the first and second EIPs because they were issued in 2020, but it is available for the current EIP program, the third one, that $1,400 payment. You can go to irs.gov/coronavirus/get-my-payment. Or if you go to Google and you Google Get My Payment IRS, it should, one of the first results that pulls up should be the irs.gov website for the Get My Payment tool. CalJ also has our legal assistance helpline for seniors, and we may be able to assist in tracking those payments or using the online tools. I will give the contact information for our legal advice helpline a little bit later in the presentation, but we can assist people who don't have access to the internet or who don't feel comfortable over the phone in order to get information from the Get My Payment tracking tool. All right, the next question, what if you're claimed as a dependent on someone else's tax returns? This happens obviously with children, but it also happens with a lot of adults. And people over age 17 who are claimed as dependents on another person's returns, unfortunately, are not eligible to receive payments under the first and second EIP programs. And this was fixed, however, for the third EIP. So dependents of all ages are eligible to receive that one if the person claiming them is eligible to receive an EIP. The dependent payment would have gone to the filer claiming you as a dependent. So if you live with your children and you don't file taxes on your own and they might have claimed you as a dependent, that could be a reason why you did not get your own EIP. It would have gone to them and they would have that money. So it's something that you would need to work out with a person who's claiming you as a dependent. All right, on that same vein, if you didn't get a payment and the IRS says you're not eligible, why is this? There are a couple of reasons, and depending on the reason, there might be some things you can do to change that. Certain individuals are just not eligible for the EIP payments. These include people over age 17 who are claimed as dependents for the first and second EIPs. We went over that in the previous slide. Also, undocumented immigrants and documented immigrants who are considered non-resident aliens. These would be people who are here on a student visa or people who are here in other temporary status, who are not permanent residents or who don't have proper documentation. They are not eligible for the EIP payments. Under the third EIP program, households that had mixed immigration status, that had an individual who might not be documented, but another member who has a social security number that's valid for employment, might be eligible for EIPs. And for that, you would want to consult something like the legal advice helpline or the Get My Payment tool to find out if you're eligible, if you're in one of those households of mixed immigration status. Along this same vein, victims of identity theft involving someone who filed taxes in that individual's name may be told initially that they are not eligible. This could be because the person who filed taxes in your name fraudulently claimed too much income to make you eligible. This happens particularly to people who don't file taxes because they don't need to. If they don't make enough money to have to file taxes, someone may get a hold of your social security number, file taxes in your name fraudulently, get a refund, and then initially make you ineligible for the stimulus payment. We've seen this happen before. However, upon proof that the identity theft occurred, upon proof that return that was filed to the IRS in your name is fraudulent, the IRS will give the EIPs to people who are otherwise eligible. And for this, if you feel that this has happened to you, you can contact our office, the Center for Elder Law and Justice. We'll have the contact information at the end. We have assisted people with this situation in the past, and we may be able to assist you with it as well. Another frequently asked question is if you added a dependent in 2020 who wasn't listed on your 2019 tax returns. Say you filed your tax returns in February of 2020, and then your mother or your grandmother moved in with you, or then you had a baby, or in 2021 who was not listed on your 2020 tax returns. How do you get the EIP for those dependents? The EIP, since it's a tax credit, you can always get the missing EIPs on your next year's tax filing. You can file for that recovery rebate credit in the next year and get your EIP payment then if you've already filed a tax return and then you add a dependent. All right, now let's go through some scams and some misinformation that is commonly floating around about the EIPs. If you see or are exposed to any of the following situations, that's a red flag and you want to be very careful about how you approach that. If someone contacts you and offers to help you get your EIP for a fee, if they charge a fee for the service, no one should be charging a fee to help you get your economic impact payment. That is a scam. Our office does assist people on the legal advice helpline and through our senior financial safety tool about getting the economic impact payment, but we will never charge a fee for this service. There are other nonprofit legal services agencies that will assist you. People have also contacted their elected officials or the IRS directly for assistance in getting these EIPs. Those are all legitimate sources of assistance and they will never charge a fee. If someone's charging you a fee to help you get your EIP, then that's a red flag that that might be a scam. Or if someone tells you that even though you're not eligible, they can make you eligible for the EIP by paying them a fee. That is not only a scam, but that's fraudulent. If you're not eligible, then if someone is telling you that they can make you eligible, that is a scam. And if someone is telling you they can make you eligible if you pay them $500, that's a scam, that's also fraud. If someone tells you to provide personal information to any entity other than the IRS in order to receive your EIP, if you get a phone call or an email saying that you should provide information to an agency or an organization that you've never heard of, and they will give it to the IRS to get your EIP, that's a red flag that it's a scam. Along the same lines, if someone tells you that your EIP is frozen due to outstanding criminal charges or warrants, similarly, if similar to the scam about social security numbers being frozen, if you get a voicemail or an email saying that it's been frozen or it's been locked out, that is always going to be a scam. The EIPs and the eligibility for them are not connected to criminal charges or warrants, and they cannot be frozen for that reason. The only way, if you get your EIP, the only way the government can redirect it to someone else is in certain programs. If you owe back child support, they might be able to direct it that way. But your EIP is not going to be frozen for criminal charges. It's not going to be frozen if your social security number is frozen, because social security numbers cannot be frozen. That's a scam as well. It's not a scam so much as it is misinformation. If you receive an EIP, but you know that you are not eligible for the program, if you filed taxes and you made $400,000 last year and you receive an EIP anyways, there are some EIPs that are being issued in error, and those do need to be paid back. So if you're sure that you are not eligible, but you received one anyways, IRS.gov does have instructions for how to return an EIP payment to them. And finally, if someone other than the IRS tells you that you need to repay or return your EIP, that's not so much a scam as it is misinformation. If the IRS criteria for the EIP says that you're not eligible, if it comes down directly from the IRS, those income limits that we talked about, those other eligibility requirements, if you look at those and you know that you're not eligible, that's one thing. But if someone tells you on Facebook or your neighbor is talking to you and says, oh, you're going to need to pay that back next year, it's not a scam, but it is misinformation, because these are tax credits. They're being given out in some cases outside of the normal tax return filing and refund process, but they do not need to be paid back unless they were issued to you in error. And those are only happening in very rare circumstances. All right, we talked a little bit about our senior financial safety tool. This is a tool that's run by the Center for Elder Law and Justice. It's a web-based app that allows our community partners to screen older adults for financial exploitation, and it also allows older adults to self-screen for risk of financial exploitation. The senior financial safety tool has been updated to screen for some COVID scams, including scams related to the economic impact payment. And this is one avenue to get to our office if you think, for example, that someone might have filed IRS returns fraudulently in your name, making you ineligible for an EIP. You can visit the link that's given on the slides. You can also visit our telephone screening hours if you don't have safe internet access. It's from Tuesdays from 12 to 2, and the phone number is 833-646-9799. 1401. You can also visit CELJ's website directly at elderjusticeny.org to get to the Senior Financial Safety Tool and run that screening. And then at the end of it, it will ask you if you want legal assistance from the Center for Elder Law and Justice, or if you want to be referred to legal assistance. You would hit yes if you want that legal help from us in getting your EIP, or if you think that you are a victim of an EIP scam, or if you just want more information about these scams and want to be able to protect yourself from them. That's a great way to get to our office, to make sure you're getting to the people in our office who deal with scams, and so that we can get you the help that you need. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Liam for some specifics for residents of adult care facilities and their advocates regarding the EIP program.
Thank you, Erin. Okay, so because we are speaking about finances and the management of finances, a good place to start would be some of the basic residence rights that nursing home residents have relative to their finances. So a SNF is a skilled nursing facility, commonly known as a nursing home. And any resident of a nursing home, be they in long-term care or rehab, they have some foundational rights. And those related to finances include the right to manage their own financial affairs if they choose to have information about the services and charges for each service provided by the nursing home. Nursing home residents have the right to have personal funds of more than $100 or $50 if you receive Medicaid, deposited by their nursing home in a separate interest-bearing account if they choose to hold their funds with the nursing home. Residents also have the right to receive financial statements quarterly, or when they want them, they can request to have a financial statement. They also have the right not to be charged for services that are already covered by Medicare or Medicaid. Now, nursing home residents, they have certain rights related to their finances, but their facilities, their nursing homes, they also have responsibilities that they have to meet. So if a resident chooses to deposit their personal funds with the facility is then a fiduciary of those funds, and it is their responsibility to hold, safeguard, manage, and account for the funds deposited by the resident with the facility. They have to keep good records and keep track of the funds that they're holding for the resident to make sure that they keep them safe. It's also the facility's responsibility to ensure that residents have access to those funds that they're holding for the resident. This means that if a resident requests to withdraw their funds, there are timelines that the facility has to follow in terms of getting those funds to the resident. So if a resident requests an amount less than $100 or $50 if you receive Medicaid, the facility must honor that request in the same day. If it's an amount that's over $100 or over $50 for Medicaid residents or residents who receive Medicaid, then the facility has a little bit more time, but they still must get those funds to the resident within 3 banking days. So knowing those rights, knowing those basic financial residence rights that nursing home residents have, and we'll talk about adult care facility residents shortly, that helps us to think then about how those rights will apply to the economic impact payments. So nursing home residents, and Erin touched on this a little bit, but they have the right to receive and spend the economic impact payment as they see fit. That is their money, and it is theirs to decide what to do with it. It is prohibited for nursing homes to seize resident stimulus payments or economic impact payments to pay for debts or to seize it for any other reason. There's no limitation on how residents can spend these funds. We have seen residents spending them on things like cell phones or telephones, televisions and other electronics, personal internet access, clothing, books, all sorts of things that might improve the resident's life or give them access to something that they didn't have prior. It is important to mention, though, that residents are at high risk for financial exploitation and abuse, and they may want to avoid spending the payment on items that would later count as a resource and potentially impact their Medicaid eligibility. Erin discussed this. The economic impact payments do not count as income, but if you buy something that could be considered a resource that might cause issues for you down the line, for example, if you were to buy collectible coins, you then have something that might be considered a resource and can impact your benefits. Now, we spoke about access to funds at a nursing home if you're a resident, and the facility's responsibility to provide access to those funds. Those responsibilities of the facility are the same for the economic impact payment. If a resident chooses to withdraw the entire amount of any of the EIPs or any amount, then the facility must provide the resident with the full amount within 3 banking days, again, because that would be over $100 or $50 for a Medicaid recipient. It should also be noted, though, that withdrawing a large sum of money for a resident is risky if they're not planning on spending that quickly. There are some other considerations that are important specifically for nursing home residents. If you are a nursing home resident that has a representative with legal access to your economic impact payments, for example, a guardian or a power of attorney, that representative is required to act within the scope of their legal authority and spend the payment as the resident directs if the resident is able to, or as the resident would have wanted if they are unable to direct their wishes for how those funds would be spent. If a resident no longer has capacity, or rather if a resident has diminished capacity and is no longer able to make responsible decisions about those funds, and they don't have a guardian or a power of attorney or active family to help direct how to spend their payment, then the facility should spend that money on items in a manner the resident would have wanted, or in a way to benefit the resident if it's unknown what they would have wanted. So some examples could include music therapy or a robotic therapy pet. At the bottom of this slide, you'll see a link to a frequently asked questions document that the Center for Elder Law and Justice has prepared. You can follow that link to see more information specifically for nursing home residents to break down, their rights relative to the economic impact payment, and to read more about useful tools for residents who are having issues. Now, Erin mentioned earlier briefly, she spoke about representative payee and what a resident's rights are relative to their economic impact payment if they have a representative payee. A representative payee is somebody who receives your Social Security disbursements for you and then spends them on your behalf, typically for a person who is not fully capable of managing their own benefits. This is especially important for nursing home residents, though, because it is common for nursing homes to act as the representative payee for the residents. So oftentimes nursing homes are that party that is receiving and spending Social Security payments on behalf of the resident. And the nursing home might not be aware that it is prohibited for them to seize those funds and to spend them on debts or to seize them for any reason. So it's an issue that nursing home residents should be particularly aware of to make sure that facility hasn't accidentally seized those funds and applied them to your bill or spent them otherwise. Representative payees, again, reiterating what Erin spoke about, they do not have the right to spend the EIP as they do with Social Security payments they receive on behalf of the residents. The resident can choose to request for assistance from the representative payee in spending those funds how they see fit, but the resident should be directing how those funds are spent, and it is their decision where they go and how to spend them. Recently, we became aware of an issue, the Center for Elder Law and Justice, of a nursing home resident who was planning to spend one of their economic impact payments so that they could get a new wheelchair that they're hoping for. But the resident then later became aware that that economic impact payment had been withdrawn from their account with the nursing home. Excuse me. Later, it was revealed that what had happened was Adult Protective Services, which is a government agency that sometimes acts as representative payee, had chosen to withdraw or requested from the nursing home to withdraw those funds into their accounts so that they could manage them and spend them as they would normally with a Social Security payment. But APS did not have the right to do that in this situation. Those, as we have reiterated again and again during this presentation, those economic impact payments are intended for the resident to spend as they see fit. If the resident chose to allow or requested that Adult Protective Services hold those funds, then the rep payee, or in this situation, APS, they should work with the resident to help them spend the funds as they would like. But it has to be the recipient of the economic impact payment. It has to be their choice that they allow their representative payee to hold those funds and to help them spend those funds. Now, if you can't find your economic impact payment as a nursing home resident, then what we learned earlier in the presentation is that you have a right to an accounting of a financial accounting every, I believe, 3 months from the facility, but you can also request it. So if you're not sure where your economic impact payment went, then you might consider requesting that financial accounting from your facility so you can see if that's where that payment was sent to. And you can see also maybe if that payment was spent without your knowledge. If residents find that their EIP has been wrongfully seized by their facility, they may consider sharing that frequently asked questions document that I mentioned earlier in my portion of the presentation. They may consider sharing that fact sheet on the topic with staff members or administration. And again, that link is available. That FAQ, that frequently asked questions on the stimulus checks for nursing home residents, that's available on our resources page. There's a link here on this slide. Our long-term care resources page, which has not only those fact sheets, but many useful informational materials for nursing home and adult care facility residents. If a resident needs further assistance beyond that with obtaining a copy of their financial accounting or recovering improperly seized economic impact payments, then there's a couple agencies that they may wish to contact, either the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program or the New York State Attorney General Consumer Complaint Hotline. We have seen, I'll speak a little bit more about the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program in the next slide, but we have seen that the Attorney General has taken interest in situations where facilities have wrongfully seized economic impact payments, and they are often willing to step in and intervene to remedy that situation. So it can be a useful advocate to call for assistance if you find that your payment has been taken from you improperly. The Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, they are a federally mandated program, meaning that every state is required to have one. And they are staffed by experts on nursing home residents' rights and adult care facility residents' rights. And both of those facilities are legally required to work with and listen to the Ombudsman Program. So it makes them an invaluable tool for any resident of a long-term care facility who has issues with quality of care, quality of life, or their basic residents' rights. The way the program works is you reach out to the Ombudsman Program to share with them some information about your situation, and then they will reach out to the nursing home on the behalf of the resident to try to resolve those issues that they're having. In Western New York, if you live in Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, Erie, or Niagara County, you can use the number listed on this slide for Region 15. But outside of those counties, then you would want to try to contact the state long-term care ombudsman program. That number is also on this slide, and a link to the website for the state ombudsman program is there as well. They're not only really helpful if you're having issues with your economic impact payment, they are really helpful for long-term care facility residents who are having any issue with quality of care, quality of life, or their basic residents' rights. Another place where you can turn if you are a resident of a long-term care facility to file a complaint is the New York State Attorney General Medicaid Fraud Control Unit. We saw in an earlier slide that the consumer unit is the appropriate unit to call if you're looking for assistance with your economic impact payments. The Medicaid Fraud Control Unit is a unit that investigates abuse and neglect in residential healthcare settings. So it's another place you can call and file a formal complaint if you're having issues with the quality of your care or life. Another place where you can file a complaint if you find that your EIP has been wrongfully seized, or if you have any complaint with the quality of care or the quality of life at your nursing home, is the New York State Department of Health. The Department of Health is the agency in New York State responsible for surveying and inspecting nursing homes to make sure that they're following all federal and state rules and regulations. They investigate every complaint that they receive, and if they investigate and find that there's been wrongdoing, then they have the power to issue citations and fines. So another avenue where you could file a formal complaint. There is a separate number if you are a nursing home resident than if you are an adult care or an assisted living facility resident. Adult care facilities are commonly referred to as assisted living facilities. Now, if you are an adult care facility resident, there are some slight differences in your basic financial rights as an adult care facility resident or assisted living facility resident. You also have the right to manage your own financial affairs, and adult homes or assisted living facilities must offer banking services to anyone who gets SSI, and they often offer these services to other residents as well. You have the right to access your money at least 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. A schedule must be posted in the home and may not be changed without 5 days advanced notice. And again, you have the right to account statements at least every 3 months or upon request. Now, an adult care facility or assisted living facility, their duty, their financial responsibility, they have to provide financial case management services, including helping the resident access benefits, including one-time benefits like the economic impact payment. And they have to help them access banking, they have to help them with income maintenance, and assist them with resolving financial issues. Now, the basic adult care facility residents' rights relating to economic impact payments are substantially the same as what we've reviewed for nursing home residents. They have the same rights relative to their economic impact payments, and those complaint avenues and advocate avenues would also be appropriate to contact for those who are having issues with their payments. If you are an adult care facility resident, though, you have another tool in your toolbox if you're having those issues with your economic impact payment, and that is what's called a Dear Administrator letter. These are letters written and published by the New York State Department of Health that we spoke about earlier that give directions to administrators who run adult care facilities. They give them notices and directions about certain issues and direct them how they should handle certain issues. And a Dear Administrator letter was issued for economic impact payments for adult care facility administrators that expressly states that these facilities cannot seize those funds and that those funds are for the resident to spend as they see fit. There's a link there to access this Dear Administrator letter in case you might find it useful to have as a reference or to show to your facility if that's necessary. And then at the bottom of this slide as well, there is another frequently asked questions document that we have prepared. This one specific to adult care facility or assisted living facility residents. And again, you might want to have that to reference and possibly to share if it becomes necessary. Here are a couple useful, as we get ready to close up the presentation, here are a couple useful informational tools for people, for residents or those who are considering becoming residents. There's a link here to a Care Compare website where you can access ratings for local nursing homes and nursing homes nationally. The New York State Department of Health has a website where you can read the profiles for nursing home facilities and see a history of their citations that they've received. The Long-Term Care Community Coalition is an advocacy group that releases also many really useful informational materials for long-term care facility residents. And then again, I'm going to include the link to our informational resources page, which includes those fact sheets that we've discussed on economic impact payments for nursing home and adult care facility residents. And it also has many other useful informational materials that you might like to read and review, including our Nursing Home Residents' Rights Guide. And then I'll also plug a presentation that happened earlier during the Elder Law Day series. Bria Lewis gave a presentation on general nursing home residents' rights. You can watch that on YouTube. I've included the link there, and that's also available on the Erie County website. So if you're looking for more information about other basic nursing home residents' rights outside of those financials, you could look here to make a start learning what some of those basic rights are. And then I think I'm going to hand it back to Erin here to close us out. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Liam. I just want to give some contact information for some of the resources that CELJ has that can assist you. The first is our Senior Legal Advice Helpline. We referred to this a couple times during the presentation. This provides brief legal services over the phone free of charge to individuals aged 55 and over. And these services are provided regardless of income level or resource levels. They're provided to everyone who's 55 and over. These include answers to brief legal questions, answers about questions about the economic impact payments, about nursing home resident rights, any civil legal questions we can provide answers to, or if this question or the situation is not appropriate for telephone legal services, if it's something that needs a little bit more of an in-depth assistance, we can provide referrals to full scope legal resources when needed. We have live calling hours and also voicemail and email options. Our live calling hours are Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. The phones are answered by a licensed attorney, so you'll get to an attorney right away. We also have voicemail and email information. The voicemails and emails are returned by licensed attorneys within 2 to 3 business days. To contact the legal advice helpline for live calling hours and to leave a voicemail regarding or request assistance that way, you would call 1-800 or 1-844-481-0973, and that's a toll-free number. Or if you would like to request assistance via email, you would email helpline@elderjustice.org. And finally, we have our Legal Risk Detector app. Similar to the Senior Financial Safety tool that we discussed earlier in the presentation, this is a web-based legal health checkup that allows our partner and community organizations and older adults themselves to screen for common legal issues. While the Senior Financial Safety tool screens for financial exploitation and risk of being victim of scams, the Legal Risk Detector screens for more general legal issues, such as housing, consumer issues, healthcare issues, and other legal issues in a more general sense. This app, like the Senior Financial Safety tool, offers referrals to legal resources if they're needed and if the person being screened requests them. And it's available at the website on this presentation. It's also available by going directly to elderjusticeny.org. And here's the contact information for CELJ if you want to get a hold of our office directly. Our main office is in Buffalo. We also have offices in Chautauqua and in Niagara County. Our contact information and phone number, website are all right here for you, and as well as a link to the presentation survey. And now we have a little bit of time so we can take any questions that may have come up during the presentation or that you have right now.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Liam. Very comprehensive presentations. Lots of great information was shared and links. For those of you watching, if you didn't catch something, these slides will be available on erie.gov/ELD, and the presentation is being recorded and will be available on YouTube as well. There are no questions at this point. I think you guys covered a lot of information, so that's great. Thank you for your time today. Thank you everyone for joining. Please take a minute to fill out our brief survey that will pop up at the end of this, and join us tomorrow if you could at 10 a.m. for our next presentation on issues facing older LGBTQ adults. Thank you again.